In this exercise, the COO of the airline would like us to provide deeper insight into the routes being flown by the various flights, specifically around the amount of revenue and fares being brought in, along with identifying trends regarding the most popular months to fly. Let's start with question 4A, where we're being asked to determine the number of flights flown from Chicago's O'Hare Airport to Los Angeles International Airport. In order to perform this analysis, we're going to need to combine data from the routes table that has the departure and arrival airport information with data from the flights table that has the number of flights flown. We already linked our data tables together in the first exercise, so we can jump into creating the pivot table straight away. Just like before, we're going to put the pivot tables in a separate tab for each answer, so let's go ahead and navigate to the tab named Pivot 4A. In order to insert our pivot table, we're going to go to the Power Pivot tab and select Pivot Table. We want to insert the pivot on this tab, so let's select Existing Worksheet and then we're going to click on OK. We're looking for the number of flights on a specific route, so we're going to count the flight IDs from the Flights Pivot Table since each flight ID represents a unique flight. Let's go ahead and drag this field into the Values section, making sure to check that we are counting the values. This gives us the total number of flights across all routes. However, we just want to see the number of flights on the ORD LAX route. Remember, our routes table only contains flights leaving from Chicago. This means that we focus purely on the arrival airport, which is listed as the airport ID in the routes pivot table. Let's grab that field and drag it into the rows section of our pivot table. As you can see, we now have a pivot table that shows the total number of flights for each of the airports that our company flies to. We're interested in the total number of flights going to LAX, which can be found in row 16. We're going to select this answer, copy it, and then move back to the Exercise 4 tab, where we paste the answer into cell G13. Now that we are done with the first question, let's move to question 4B. Here we're being asked which route accounts for the lowest percentage of total revenue. Remember how we created a calculator field for the total revenue in exercise 3 that took into account 10% tax? We're going to use that field here to determine the total revenue for each of the routes. So let's head to the Pivot 4B tab and select Pivot Table in the Power Pivot tab on the ribbon. Just like before, we want to place the pivot in this sheet, so we're going to select Existing Worksheet and click OK. Next, we're going to take the total revenue field from the Flights pivot and drag it into the Values section, making sure that we sum the values. We want to look at the revenue on a route-by-route basis, so let's grab the route ID field from the routes pivot table and drag it into the rows section. We now have a table showing the total revenue for each of the routes. However, this does not yet answer the question, since we are asked to determine which route accounts for the lowest percentage of total revenue. So let's start by changing the pivot table to show the revenue values as percentages. We do this by right-clicking on the pivot table and selecting Show Values As, followed by selecting Percentage of Grand Total. As we can see, the table now shows us what percentage of the total revenue is coming from each of the routes. In order to determine the route that accounts for this lowest percentage, let's right-click on the pivot table again and select Sort from Lowest to Highest. Now we can see that the Chicago to Salt Lake City route is the one bringing in the least amount of revenue. So let's go back to the Exercise 4 tab and input the answer into cell G17. The next question asks us to identify the most popular month to fly to Fort Lauderdale, or FLL, as it is designated by its airport code. Answering this question is going to require the airport ID from routes pivot table along with the month information from the flights pivot table. Remember that the months in the table are stored as numbers, with January being month number 1 and so on and so forth. Let's get started. Just like before, we're going to place the pivot table in the tab associated with the question. So let's head to the Pivot 4C tab. As usual, we're going to select the pivot table option from the Power Pivot tab on the ribbon. Next, we select Existing Worksheet and then click OK to create the pivot table. We want to count the number of flights heading to each destination. So let's go ahead and select the Flight ID field from the Flights pivot and drag it into the Values section, making sure that we are counting the IDs to get the number of flights. We want to see the number of flights on a monthly basis. So let's grab the Months field from the Flights pivot and drag it into the Rows section. Our pivot table is now showing us the number of flights for each month across all routes flown by the airline. Since we are trying to determine the most popular month specifically for the Chicago to Fort Lauderdale route, we're going to go ahead and filter this table using the Route ID field from the Routes pivot table. Let's select the Route ID field and drag it into the Filter section. See how this adds a filter above our pivot table? We're going to click on the filter we just created and select the ORD-FLL route from the drop-down. Now our pivot table is showing us the number of flights on the Chicago to Fort Lauderdale route on a monthly basis. We want to know which month is the most popular, so let's go ahead and sort the values in column B by right-clicking, selecting Sort, and picking the largest to smallest option. As we can see, month number 6 has the most flights. Hence we go back to the Exercise 4 tab and input that June was the most popular month in cell G21. Finally, we're going to create a pivot chart to show the number of flights per month on the Chicago-Philadelphia route. We've been provided with a chart area where we are going to place this graph. So let's click on cell F26 and navigate to the Power Pivot tab on the ribbon, where we're going to select the pivot chart option. We want to show the number of flights per month, so we're going to grab the month attribute from the flights pivot table and drag it into the Axis section. We also select the flight ID attribute from the same table and drop it into the Values section, making sure we are counting the values. The chart we just created provides us with an overview of the number of flights per month. But since we are showing data that changes over time, a line graph would be a more appropriate representation. So let's go ahead and update the chart type. This is done by clicking on the chart, going to the Design option, and selecting Change Chart Type. Remember, we only want to show the number of flights per month that are flying the Chicago-Philadelphia route. So we're going to need to filter the data that is being plotted. We do this by selecting the route ID and dragging it into the filter section. As you see, this creates a filter in the upper corner of the graph. Let's click on this filter and select ORD-PHL. Finally, we're going to change the name of the chart by selecting the placeholder text and replacing it with number of flights flying the ORD-PHL route. We can now see how the number of flights on the Chicago-Philadelphia route are distributed over the course of the year. This route is clearly more popular in June and November, whereas March is the least popular month. In this section, we learned how to create power pivots and power charts using multiple data tables and filters. Now it is your turn to practice what you just learned in the student workbook.